Greetings, information explorers. Welcome to exciting adventures in learning. Today we're going to be looking at what is going on with all the attacks and the increased attacks, cybersecurity problems during these past 18 months with the pandemic. It's almost like it's a great 2021 cybersecurity pandemic. So let's see if we can survive it. We'll be just spending a short time together today, going over some of the facts and some of the responses to this cyber pandemic. So we'll start off by talking about what's going on, who's doing what, is it real? We'll talk about how things appear to be accelerating, a lot of increase in attacks. We'll talk about potential business responses to these attacks, and we'll talk about potential home worker responses to these attacks. And I'll take some questions if there's time. Let us begin. So what is it? What's going on with this so-called cyber pandemic? Well, to tell you the truth, news media is somewhat to blame. News media, I mean, how do they make money? They make money by sensationalizing the news. And this is pretty sensational news. However, I wish I could say, oh, this is just BBC and CNN being silly again. But unfortunately, statistics tell us that's not the case. See, hackers are locked up too. And this is having an effect on them. Hackers used to be young people, and they still are. Young people, they live at home with their families. They're trying to make a name for themselves. But you know, there have been hackers around for so long. People my age are hackers. You'll find people in their 60s who are hackers. Some of the best hackers in the world are in their 60s. And they need money. They don't live at home with their mom, or even if they do, they need money. And if they're out of work, all the more so they need money. So we're seeing a huge rise in phishing and ransomware fraud, online fraud. I'm sure we're all experiencing all the phone calls you get on your phone all the time from, I don't know, everyone's calling me. The Singapore government's calling me and scolding me. Banks I don't even keep money in are calling me and scolding me. They're all fraudulent, of course. And also we have hackers trapped at home who are just bored and looking for things to do. Same as you and I. All the same issues we have, except you and I, for a living, hopefully are not hackers. Actually, I kind of am, but I hope that I'm a white hat hacker. Basically, we believe that everything is ratcheted up right now because the employees are like the knights out of the castle and much easier targets. You are perceived as being a much easier target outside of the fortress of your job, outside the protection of the job security staff, outside the protection of the corporation or organization's firewalls, et cetera, et cetera. You're at home and you're much more vulnerable, and they're going to have at you. So, out of work hackers, out of work security personnel. Although it's unfortunate if you're a security person right now and you're out of work, because it's hard to connect right now professionally. Because I just want you to know, don't be discouraged. There is a huge demand right now for security and cybersecurity. And I mean security like traditional security. There is a huge demand right now. It's a growth area right now. But it's also very difficult, and a lot of funny things are happening. It's hard to take a job right now. It's hard to get a job right now. I think it's about to change. So if you are out of work security, please don't start hacking people. Sometimes people are doing it not intentionally, not trying to hurt anybody. But when you start hacking, even for fun, people get hurt. Regular hackers, people who do this every day. There's more and more. There's more users on the internet every day. There's like 3 billion of them now. And there's more hackers. And more people in the less rich, affluent countries are getting onto the internet now. And those are even going to have a higher per capita hacker rate. In other words, the lower the income of the country, the higher percentage of the people on the internet are going to be hackers because, well, it's self-evident. Organized crime. Organized crime has learned how to use business, and organized crime has learned how to use the internet. Hacktivists, there's a lot of political activity right now. There's a lot of energy in disrupting things for a good cause. And this is quite dangerous because the people who are hacktivists, the people who are hacking for a good cause, believe they've got the right to do so because they're right. I'm right. My opinion's right. Your opinion's wrong. If I hurt you, that's a good thing. If I steal from you, that's a good thing. If I disrupt you, that's a good thing. The creators would want me to do it. Politicians and billionaires, we could put aluminum foil hats on our head. It wouldn't hurt my head to have one. And have a lot of conspiracy theories, but I'll tell you, it's almost certain some of this is going on. When you're working with law enforcement, they will always tell you this: follow the money. Who's making money right now? Who's getting richer right now? Those people don't want this to end. And governments, as always, governments are always, there's an old saying in the government: never let a good crisis go to waste. Always take advantage of every good crisis. Cyber criminals are targeting remote workers. COVID-19 lockdowns have forced millions of workers to go home. Many employees are unprepared for these new risks that are happening, which has led roughly to a quarter of organizations to pay unanticipated costs related to security breaches. For example, 82% of organizations have allowed employees and other stakeholders to use their equipment, but 72% didn't have malware protection. Use their own equipment. You see, like I said, we were inside the fortress before. Now you're out camping outside the fortress and you're much more vulnerable. Your home PC is probably much more vulnerable than the one at work. Yet maybe you're dialing into work now, dialing in, of course, remote accessing, not dialing in, using VPNs and whatnot. As organizations lock down during this pandemic, many harness VPN technology. It seems like a likelihood. As a security guy, over the past 10 years, a little bit less now, but over the past 10 years, it's been my job to try to communicate to some organizations. If you don't have one, the first thing you should get is a firewall, probably. It's good truth to that. For your connection to the internet, if you don't have a firewall, your first purchase should be your firewall, but that's not your last purchase. And you shouldn't depend on your firewall alone. We're going to talk about this concept of where we should put our trust. Likewise, it seems like right now, a lot of people are doing remote access using VPNs. I like VPNs. I like firewalls. I like VPNs, but I want you to know, if you're not using a VPN, you should probably use one. If you don't have a firewall, you should probably get one. But a firewall by itself is not enough. And a VPN by itself is not enough. Do not depend on that as being the only thing you need. This puts the organization at risk since hackers can easily use ransomware to exploit unpatched VPNs and other attacks. VPNs, are getting a lot of attention now, and we're finding out that a lot of them are not very good. As a safer alternative, over 30% of IT security teams are turning to zero trust. And this is one of the messages I want to give you today. Zero trust. This is a message for a day, and this is a message for going forward. Zero trust means you assume every single one of your defenses will be defeated. Every single perimeter will somehow be breached, and yet you're prepared to defend yourself. The image that I want you to have in your mind is that you're hiding under the bed because somehow the burglars got over your fence. Somehow the burglars got through your front door. Somehow the burglars got past your alarms. Somehow the burglars are kicking in your bedroom door and you're hiding under the bed. And you're still ready to defend yourself because you've planned for this. There's this wonderful thing I saw online when I was looking for pictures of people hiding under their bed. They are selling beds now that are safe rooms. Then, you crawl into the bed, you close a little door and you're safe in there, and you call the police, and you should be safe from anybody except someone who has a hand grenade. It's amazing. This is the mentality I want you to have. I want you to assume somehow someone is going to break into your computer. No matter what you do, somehow they're going to do it. And so you're going to protect your data anyway. So just imagine this. Some bad guy sneaks into your house while you're gone. Your computer was left turned on. You're logged in, and they still can't access your sensitive data. That's what we want. That's the mentality we're looking for. That's zero trust. You're going to be hiding under your bed. The bad guys are going to be standing in your bedroom, and you're still going to be safe. That's the plan we want to come up with. Okay. As organizations I thought I said go forward. Go forward. There we go. So zero trust is a shift of network defenses. It's a move towards a more comprehensive model, not just saying we've got a VPN, we're okay. Not just saying I have strong passwords, I'm okay. Not just saying I have SSL encryption, I'm okay. Not saying I've got a firewall and authentication, I'm okay. No. Looking at all of that and more. Doing the best we can with all those layers of defense, and still assuming somehow somebody's going to get through. It allows organizations to restrict access controls to networks, applications, and their physical environment. And you should be thinking about this at home as well. I just want you to know, you ever let a bad guy or someone like me touch your keyboard, we can do anything. So physical security is very, very important. We want to be able to set up these layers of defense without sacrificing performance and experience. One of the problems we always have is that, to a large extent, security is like a teeter-totter. One of these things. And on one end, you have security. And on the other end, you have ease of use. And when you make one higher, the other one necessarily becomes lower. And unfortunately, there's some truth to this. Things are getting a little bit better, but there's still a lot of truth to this. I mean, think about it. What is the most secure computer you could have? One that you've turned off. It also happens to be the least useful one. So is there an alarming acceleration of attacks? I tell you, I cannot even keep up with the reading materials now on this topic. Online scams, all-time high. Offline scams, all-time high. I want to warn you, people are after your money. People are after your identity. People are after your data in the physical world just as much as they are in the technical world. Disruptive malware, ransomware, all-time high. Ransomware is becoming such a big problem that a lot of so-called bad guys have made a community together to fight back against it. It's so far out of control. These are gray hats, people who have been black hat hackers in the past. They're forming a consortium to fight against it. Distributed denial of service. And you're going to probably notice some degradation of performance on the internet. Data harvesting. This is one of the most scary kinds of malware because you might not know you ever had it, but it's copying out your data. Malicious domains where you're tricked to point to it. You're tricked to go into a bad place on the internet, or a fake place, like you think you're OCBC Bank, but you're not. Misinformation. There's a lot of this going on, and general fraud. Now, please understand, how much of this is a pandemic? I think the pandemic has made a existing problem worse. But even after the pandemic's over, if it's ever over, they say we're going from pandemic to endemic soon, which is still going to be better. I think we're still going to have these problems because more and more people are getting on the internet. Now they're putting a bunch of satellites up in the sky, so people who live in places that don't have very reasonable connection to the internet will still be able to get a pretty good connection to the internet. So you're going to have more and more people connecting to the internet. So we're going to have more and more people who are eliciting this behavior. We're just going to have to toughen up. I grew up in the United States, in a pretty rough city in the United States, and you had to watch over your shoulder all the time. So I learned an important lesson growing up there. You just assume, that you got to be careful. You just assume that you have to be watchful. Well, as far as the internet's concerned, I think this is a dangerous neighborhood, and I think we must be always careful. Okay, so if this is a cybersecurity pandemic, what can I put in that little needle there to help me out? What vaccines might I have? Well, some of the steps we could consider are here. Establish and communicate a policy. We have to update our policies. What makes us think we can just sit back, have the world fundamentally changing, and our old policies that were written for horses and buggies will help us on self-driving car superhighways? No. We have to update our policies. Most of our policies were not prepared for so many people working from home. We have to think carefully about our remote access. We have to think carefully about data sensitivity, data handling. And when we're talking about data sensitivity and labeling data and all of that, the problem is now so much of our data is going to be created in my house. So much of my data is going to be updated in my house. So much of my data, of our sensitive data, is going to be used in my house. So we certainly have to do more training of people. These are things we used to depend on. Oh, we've got a security staff here who can oversee some of these things. Yeah, but we don't now. But this was already beginning to happen, because even without the pandemic, think of what's going on. We had, once upon a time, we had a thing that was called a data center. It was inside of our building. There it is. It's that square inside of that square. Kind of looks like a data center. And we had a whole bunch of human animals who were trained to take care of it and to manage it and to watch it, to help the other human animals who didn't know a lot about it to conform to the needs of it. But then, for a number of reasons, a lot of that sensitive information started moving out to the dangerous internet, the very, very dangerous internet, where we don't control anything. There's a lot of human animals, but most of them are bad guys, because there are so many benefits, some of which are even security benefits, to using cloud now. So we have cloud partners, and we can no longer personally manage our data. But to make it worse, so then I had a lot of my data moving out here to the cloud. But at least I had most of my users here in the protected castle. So the creation of the data still happened largely inside my castle, and the use of that data still happened largely inside that castle. And I could manage things and I could watch things. But now it's even worse, because now so much of our data is moving into our homes. Now so much of it's being created in our homes. It's being used in our homes, and our very clever human animals who know how to manage this, they're completely abstracted from it. It's kind of like a doctor trying to keep his eye on patients who are 1,000 kilometers away. Could it be done? To some extent it can be done, but it can always be done a little bit better if you can be right there in the room with them. I don't think, they say this is a permanent change that's happened from COVID. I think a lot of things are permanent changes. I think what we're going through with security is also a permanent change, because like I said, I think COVID has exacerbated the problem, but I don't think COVID by itself has created the problem. We need to think about our malware and our phishing and our physical security. How do I talk to people in their home about physical security? But I need to. If people in their home have some of my critical data on thumb drives, I need to be able to talk to them about, hey, you got to lock that up and blah, blah, blah. Education. When it comes to human beings, education is your number one tool. We need awareness programs. We need training. We need to insert this into the job review process. We need to insert this into key performance indicators. When we hire people, we need to do more and hire people, however we hire them. I mean, engage people through a contract or hiring. We need to do some background checks. An amazing thing happened to me. When I was working here in Singapore for a manufacturing company, and I came out of the computer room one day and there were police all over. And I asked the police what's going on. They said, oh yeah, the head of security molested a security guard in the toilet. I said, good, I'm surprised to hear that. But you know what happened next? When it got out that this guy had been arrested for that, a lot of women in the manufacturing areas came out and complained about him, said, yeah, he's been very inappropriate with me. He's been trying to get me to work for him in the sex industry. He's outraged my modesty. He said a lot of bad things. Many complaints came forward. That's pretty bad. But then even worse, when they did some further investigation, they found out he had not one but two cases open for outrage of modesty. And he owned not one but two escort services. He's the head of security. He has keys to everything. He has control over the closed circuit TVs and everything that collects evidence. And I don't know, it's not looking very good for him. It's looking like he's some kind of a sexual predator. Well, he's in prison now because there was plenty of evidence to prove he did some very bad things to that security guard. Right here in Singapore, my friends. And they never did the background check. You just go to Cantonment Road, you give them a little bit of money, you give them the name of the person, and the police will release your record to those people. Everyone who gets a job should be doing that now. Now, you've got to do more than just set up your policy. You have to enforce it. Remember, the policy is not the job of IT. It's like the government. You have the legislative branches, which writes the law. You have the judiciary, which interprets the law, and you have the executive, which enforces the law. Your IT department is the executive branch. They are not supposed to write the policy. They enforce the policy. They can consult with you when you're trying to develop the technical parts of the policy, sure, but it's up to the business to write the policy. If you don't have a software policy update policy, create one. Clamp down on all the dangerous activities about things going on to people's systems. And this can be a little bit difficult if you're letting people use their own systems. Don't let them bypass malware scans. Don't let them open unsolicited attachments. Don't let them install unsanctioned software. Somewhere along the way, something bad has happened. The basic value proposition is simple. Benefits minus costs equals value, right? Everyone working in business should know this. But somewhere along the way, we have all been brainwashed to be totally obsessed with cost. I'll tell you this, rich people don't think that way. Rich people think about value. They think of spending money as an investment. The reason I say this is I'm a teacher in the university. I meet a lot of students, and they sometimes make fun of me because I have a iPhone. I used to work for Apple. I've got a lot of Apple stuff. And they say, oh, don't you know, Mr. Shiflett, you can do a lot more with Android. I said, yeah, I know you can. Actually, you can, including downloading malware. I have half my students saying, oh, Mr. Shiflett, you can get an Android for a lot less money. Yeah, it's true. And the other half come to me and say, Next time my phone, I'm going to buy an iPhone again because every day my Android phone gets slower. Do you know why? Because I go out and I spend $800 on my iPhone. And if you get a pretty high-end Android phone, it's going to be $500 to $800 too, maybe even more. But I don't lay around at night sweating blood thinking about spending 99 cents for an app. Why would anybody work to make apps and then give them away for free? The answer is nobody is. All of those so-called free apps you're putting on your PC, all of those so-called free apps you're putting on your Android device are backdoors for the bad guys. So yeah, every time you put a free game on, now my Android machine device is getting slower. Of course it is, because it's hosting a whole bunch of bad guys. So we have to work on this. Use multi-factor authentication. When we say multi-factor, I mean something you know, like a password or a PIN. A lot of people think passwords and PIN numbers are bad. No, password and PIN numbers are going to be around for a long, long time, because I'll tell you something. Sooner or later, the database that has your thumbprint in it, a bad guy's going to get his hands on it. And you can't change your thumbprint, but you can change your password 1,000,000 times. Don't depend on, oh, the world will be better when we have biometrics for everything. No, it's not. People are going to eventually steal your genetic code. People are eventually going to steal your iris scan. People are going to eventually steal your facial scan. And then where will you be? You'll be working with passwords. Something you know, password or a PIN, something you have, like a key fob. And fortunately for us, most of us have smartphones and these stupid things, a smartwatch, right? And so they can be a second form of authentication now, which is great. Something you are, like biometrics. I'm not against biometrics. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying firewalls are really important, but it's not the only thing you need. VPNs are fantastic, but it's not the only thing you need. Biometrics are very helpful, but it's not the only thing you need. Now there's some other ones. Sometime it is, like, oh, you're allowed to access the systems between 8:30 a.m. and 8:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. That's a pretty good policy. Someplace you are. Now, if we can lock that down, think of all the things that would become harder for the hackers to do. If I can tell if you're on the property or if you're at your house, and no one else can use your account if you're not in one of those two places, all of Russia, all of China, all of Israel, all of the United States suddenly are going to have to go through a little bit of extra trouble to try to hack now. So, advice we're giving to companies: multi-factor authentication doesn't have to end at 2. Maybe it's time to start considering adding a 3rd or a 4th. There's a lot of tools now that make it not that painful for the user. Multi doesn't mean 2, it means 2 or more. Now's the time to conduct a lot of audits, not just on passwords, but on security in general. See if you can crack your own passwords or whatever credentials you're using. So do your own pen testing. Use hacker password dictionaries when people change their password. The same dictionaries that I might use to try to break into your systems, install those into your systems and have it when I choose a password, have it verify it's not in that hacker dictionary. Ensure maximum and minimum password dates. And don't make people change their password too long. Rather than that, make them make a long password. And I don't mean make a very hard to remember password they have to write down. I don't believe in passwords that look like this. Of course, I've got to write that down. No human being can remember that. No, I suggest we want passwords more like this. Throw in a couple numbers in there, and you've got a pretty good password. These are called passphrases. And the longer you make a password, the harder it is to crack it. We used to say, oh, you know, you can have a password. You could have a password that's just like 8 characters long. Okay. That's an interesting idea. I like that idea. I like the idea of the 8 character password. Let's have a look at the 8 character password. I have some password files right here, friends. Sorry. That's a password file from a Unix machine. And these are Unix passwords right here, right there, right there. Those are Unix passwords. I'm going to use a popular cracking tool now. That's John the Ripper. It has recognized that I have 7 passwords in there. Oh, there's cracked the first one, Singapore. That's the root password. That's the most important one. That's the super user. Oh, now it's cracked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pass. Now it's got all 7. How long did that take? 15 seconds. I guess 8's not enough now, is it? Not anymore. 8 characters. That was a brute force password. Cracked that password live right in front of you, my friends. Now we use things with our passwords. We use salts. Salt is adding a little bit of random text to the front of a set password to make it harder for someone to pre-calculate it and to make it longer to guess. We can use the use of password history so you don't reuse your passwords. We can make use of clipping levels. Clipping level is that thing that says, oh, you have three failures in one day, your account's disabled. We can run vulnerability scans. We need to have a plan. Yeah, a failure to plan a failure to plan is a plan to fail. And when you make your plan, it's a business. We have to be focused. Focus on supporting the technologies and security features and capabilities that are critical. Examples include your security operations, remote access, and authentication. Ensure your organization has security risk plans in place and test them. Testing is really good. You know, I teach a lot of people certification, CISSP certification, certified ethical hacking certification. And I'm always telling them this: when you're getting ready to take the test, do practice testing. You learn a lot from practice testing. That's right. Not only when you're doing testing are you auditing how good your security is, but your staff is learning while they're doing the testing a lot. And of course, monitor. Keep your eye on the ball. So how about the home worker? Are there any pills we can take to help us with this cybersecurity pandemic? Well, use long passwords, like I said. Don't reuse your passwords. Try to have a different password on every place you go. So therefore, consider using a keychain so that you don't have to write them down. Use multi-factor authentication. Start getting ready for more than 2. We're going to move up to 3 now. You watch. Encrypt, 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 encrypt. Consider encrypting your whole disk. I've got news for you if you're a Windows user. Windows, you'll have to trick it to install if you don't have a TPM chip. A TPM chip is a little chip that helps you encrypt your system. I applaud Microsoft for Windows 11 requiring this capability. Our handphones now are constantly all disk encrypted. Consider having all disk encryption, but please don't do it until you first have an excellent, tested backup and recovery strategy. And something I want you to all remember, please always remember this. For sensitive data, you can just zip it up with a password. That's pretty good. And we have to encrypt our data in motion. So always use HTTPS, secure web services. Consider using a VPN. Please don't think that I'm putting down VPNs. I'm just saying they're not enough by themselves. I personally don't trust Tor, the onion router, because it was funded by the FBI. Most security people don't trust it. Use email encryption. You know it's available. If you don't want to use email encryption, take your sensitive data, zip it with a password, and email that. But don't email sensitive data. In fact, don't ever send sensitive data in email unencrypted or in Messenger or chat or any of those. So keep your social media life separate from your working life. And remember, when you're on LinkedIn and you're talking about everything you're doing at work, bad guys looked at LinkedIn to find out what kinds of things they have at your job, at your location. So, don't give away too many details, please. You can talk about the things you do without saying, I drive around, without saying, I drive a 1972 Ford Fremont between this address and that address. No one needs to know all that detail. Backup and recovery is going to be very, very important, because one of the worst things that's happening now is ransomware. People are destroying your data to try to get you to pay for it. I will be happy to make these slides available to you right at the end of this presentation. No problem at all. In fact, I think you can contact the Aventis staff. I've given them a copy. They'll make arrangements for you. Home wireless. Okay, friends. This has got to be one of the weakest points. So update your router hardware. If it's 5 years or older, maybe it's time to get a new one. Update your router software. Yes, it probably wants to be updated frequently, probably a couple times a year. Set a strong administrator password on your router. If you say, I never logged into my router's password and I don't know the password. Yeah, so it's the default password. Maybe you don't know it, but the bad guys do. Look it up. You can find it online. Set a strong administration password. Set up a broadcast ID that doesn't say 23 Hopper Road. No, don't give away all that details. In fact, you can just turn off SSID. It's not big security, but it's some security. Speaking of security, make sure you're in WPA2 mode. That's when security gets serious. You could consider MAC address filtering. So there's every piece of equipment that you use in your house has a hardware address. You can find that out and you can tell your router, don't let anyone else use my network except that. It's pretty good, but it's a lot of extra work on your part. Disable the guest network if you don't have guests. Enable the guest network if you do have guests. Disable the default host setting, where all of the stuff from the internet comes into your machine. That can make some things easy to use, but it makes it a lot easier for hackers. Disable WPS and all those other friendly auto configure things, turn them off, because those are working for the bad guys. Remember this also, friends. Here's one of my favorite jokes right now. What is this? Anybody? IoT. What is that? You can put it in the chat. What does it mean? What is IoT? Yeah. IoT is Internet of Things. And here's my favorite joke. Yep, Internet of Things. And this is my favorite joke about Internet of Things. Where the S stands for security. Get it? There is no S, and there is no security. Install anti-malware, pay for it, keep it up to date. Buy your applications, keep them up to date. Because when you download illegal applications, one, you might struggle to keep it up to date, and two, why would anyone work very hard to crack the security and then give it away to you for free? The answer is because it's a backdoor for the bad guys to break into your house with. That's why. So start buying things. If you can't afford to buy things, ask your company to do it. Practice good password management in your home. Have your system set up to be locked when you're not touching the keyboard. Consider full disk encryption, but get some people's advice about that, because if you make a mistake, you lose all your data. Before you do full disk encryption, make sure you have a functioning backup and recovery strategy. And when I say functioning, I mean you test it and make sure it works. Encrypt your sensitive information. Remember, even zip passwords are pretty good. Back up your data. Protect your removables, lock them up. Make sure you have physical security. And I'll tell you, this past year, I've spent a lot of time ordering things online, and I had a really interesting experience. One of the van drivers called me up 2 days after he delivered things to me and said, "Oh yeah, you owe us $200 cash on delivery. You didn't pay. We were busy, and we didn't think to collect it." And I said, "Huh, that's funny, because I never, ever, ever, never, ever order anything cash on delivery. So come by, show me the order, and we'll fix this up, buddy. I can give you your money right here and right now." So he showed up to my house, and I had my iPad with all my purchase on, credit card. Oh, there must be a problem. Yeah, there's a problem. I called the police. There's a problem. This guy's trying to fraud me. I've been getting so many really weird new attacks, fraud attacks in my mail. And I recognize it's all the stuff I'm buying. It looks like the stuff I'm buying here. Oh, I ordered some gym equipment. Oh, are you overweight? Oh, are you interested in getting in shape? All kinds of new fraud stuff. Some really specific things I've bought over the past year that I've never bought before. And now I'm getting a whole bunch of fraud-based phishing. You know what phishing is? People are trying to trick you in the email. I think this is part of our problem right now, and it's going to continue. It's so convenient and it's so efficient to order things like this. So remember, zero trust, friends.